The next session of our SAP basis training. In this particular session, we will be learning about starting an SAP process. Means that we will be discussing about the steps which involved in starting of an SAP system as well as starting and stopping an SAP system. This is required for all the basis consultant to understand how an SAP system can be started. There are different methods how we can start an SAP system because in situations you may want to restart the SAP system, for example, after a maintenance, or it could be hardware maintenance or a operating system maintenance, or it could be also kernel update or any kind of system maintenance. You may need to bring down the system and you need to bring it up. There are different ways we can start the system and stop the system. That's what we are going to discuss it now. However, you may think, why are we starting with the starting and stopping SAP system? Why are we not learning how to install an SAP system? We will come to how to install an SAP system in the later stage. However, as a basis consultant, how to maintain the system is more critical and more important than how to install the system. Because as a basis consultant, you may not be installing the system every day. However, maintenance of the big ERP system is very important. In the course also, we will be covering a lot of administrative tasks rather than installation of an SAP system. Here we are going to discuss about the steps which involved in starting an SAP systems. Every SAP system, as you know, have a database and at least one instance. Either it could be central instance or it could also have dialog instance. So in a SAP system will also have Java stack as well as ABAP stacks. So in these cases, how the system is going to start, that's the main important thing which we are going to see in this particular step. In general, when you start an SAP system, there are 3 steps how it's going to start an SAP system. First, it will start the database. Means that if you need an SAP system to run, of course, we need to have a database running. So first, it needs to start the database, then the central instance will be started, then the dialog instance will be started. This is general starting of SAP system. In the overall view, we can say database, central instance, and dialog instance. However, the NQ services, which we have seen it before in ABAP stack, we have NQ services, which generally maintain centrally in the central instance. You will have only one NQ services. So NQ services and the message server will be only one. NQ service and message server does not need to have a database running. Without this also, it can start these instances. Now you will have another little bit of confusion how then this is going to work. In general, when you see an SAP system, we will also see how to start and stop an SAP system in the same session itself. However, when you start an SAP system, you don't need to explicitly start a database system, then you start the SAP system. You don't need to do that. If you go to the SAP console, you will start the SAP system, it automatically start up the database. So that it is internally controlled, so we really don't need to worry about that. However, you can also manually start. Let's say if you wanted to fix some issues, or you have some Oracle upgrade or some patches needs to be added in the Oracle. So in that type of scenarios, you may need to bring only the SAP system down and start the database and need to do these kind of things. In that cases, it may be useful to know how this SAP is going to be started. So the startup process is quite simple. You need to start the database, then central instance, then the dialog instances. This also applies for the ABAP as well as Java stack. However, to run the Java stack, anyway, you need to have ABAP system running if, let's say, this Java and ABAP is available in the same system. So you will initially start it together, then it will first start the ABAP system, then it will start the Java system in the sequence. In turn, if you go further more deep into how the step is going to work, in general, the first one, the priority one, should be ABAP central service instances, which is basically does not need the database running. Then it will start the NQ work processes. Then it will start the dialog instance. In order to start the dialog instance, of course, we need to start the database. Similarly, we can start the database first and also start other SAP related processes. So in general, if you want to log into a SAP system, you need to have a database running. So to log in as a dialog user, you need to have a work process running. So in that case, we need to have the database started first, then you will start your ABAP central services as well as all the dialog services. Moreover, the user who is going to start this process is also quite important. The triggering of the services will be done by the user SID ADM. SID in our case, the system which you are using, for example, ECC. Then you will have an OS user which is called ECC ADM. This will be the user who will be triggering these services. You will also see some of the services will be running under service ADM. That is also another user which is a default user which will be created by SAP during the installation. So these users will be the one which will be used to trigger the processes and to run the processes. In the similar way, stopping an SAP system works in the reverse order. First, we need to stop the dialog instance, then the central instance, then the database. Same like what we started the SAP system, the similar way, the reverse direction, on the opposite sequence, we need to stop the SAP system. Let's connect to our SAP system, the present running SAP system, and see how the SAP system looks like, how the SAP console looks like first. Using remote desktop, we are connecting to our SAP system, ECC. You can see the user ID which we are using is ECC ADM. This is the user ID which I was talking about, the SID ADM. This is the standard user created during the installation of your SAP system. So right now I'm connecting to this SAP system using Microsoft Remote Desktop, because this SAP system is hosted in Windows Server 2003 R2. This is quite old operating system anyway, but this works very well actually for this specific configuration. It's an enterprise edition, 64-bit enterprise editions. So let's log in with the SID ADM user with the password. Right now we are in the server desktop. Here you can see SAP Management Console. When you go to SAP Management Console, you will be able to see all the SAP system which is running in this specific server. And see here right now, this is green means it's running. So we have, you can see ECC demo, that is the host name of this particular system. I go to command prompt and type in the command host name. You can see ECC demo, this is the host name of the system. So we have the instance 00, the first instance, and you can see the processes which is running. This is the message server, this is this plus work, this is for the dialog instance, this is for the gateway services. Then if you go to ABAP work process table, here you can see the work process which is running in the system. You can see the dialog work processes which is mentioned as DIA. The same thing which we normally see inside our SAP system using the transaction SF50. You can see the dialog work processes and the update work process, NQ work process, as well as 3 background work process, and we can also see the spool work process as well as the update 2 work process. And similarly, you can also see the ICM process for this particular server. We will come to this later, how this ICM process can be viewed. You can see here at the moment this is running. So like this, we can see all the status in this SAP Management Console. Here only we can start and stop the SAP systems. Okay? We'll come to start and stop the SAP system in the later stage. Just now wanted to show how the Management Console looks like in our SAP system. So let's go back to our presentation and see some more. Then we will come back again how we can start and stop an SAP system. Now let us see a little more detail about the startup process. Before that, let us see how the file system or how the operating system files are being saved in an SAP system. It is quite normal that at the end we need to access some files from the operating system in order to make the SAP system working. So these files are saved in the directory in your SAP system. Let's say that it is Windows or Unix, any operating system, the directory USR SAP. Let's take an example now, a Windows system. Same like what we are using. You will have one directory called USR. Under this directory, you will have a directory called SAP. So inside this SAP directory, you will have one directory SAP SID. The SAP SID in our case is the system which we are using is ECC. Then you will have one directory called ECC. Let's assume this system is a central instance which have an ABAP stack. So in this case, you will have one subdirectory inside this SAP SID which is named as DVEBMGS. Here each letter describes one work process, and you will have one 2-digit number. This 2-digit number will be the instance numbers. In our case, the instance number which we are using is 00, then it will be 00. Then you will have work directory. Under this directory, one subdirectory called work directory. Generally, this is a working directory, what we call, where you will find all the logs for this specific instance, specific central instance. Then you will have J2EE directory. This is for the Java related files will be available in this directory, all the Java nodes and informations. Then you will have exe one directory, where you will have all the executable saved in this particular subdirectory. Let's assume this specific system is only a dialog system or dialog instance. In that case, we have D, then on the instance number. Under this, you will have work, J2EE, and exe executables. Yes, this directory is used for the central services. Let's say if the system is for central service, then the instance will have SCS and the number. Usually for the Java stack, then you will find this directory. Let's say if the central instance, this specific system have a central instance as well as a dialog instance, then you will have this directory as well as this directories. As I said, you can have more than one instance in a specific server. So you will have more than one directory. That means you can, in the specific operating system, running 2 services, one central instance as well as a dialog instance. Then you have global directory which is represented with a subdirectory as yes. That means this specific directory needs to be accessed by all instances. So inside this folder sys, you have different folders. First one is global. This contains all the global data. Then we have one folder which is called profile, which contains the default profile as well as the startup as well as the instance profiles for the SAP system. We will come to what is mean by profile. Again, then you'll have exe, that is the executable kernel files. So all these directories are shared between one system to another system using a shared name or the file share SAP MNT. The reason why we need to share the specific directories with the other SAP system is simply because you need to synchronize between these systems in terms of, for example, profile parameters, which needs to be read by all the systems. So this is already available as a share by default whenever you install any SAP system. We can go to our PC and check how this shares looks like. So here if you type ECC demo, then you can see the share name SAP MNT. So this will take you to the directory. So the user SAP is being shared with the share name SAP MNT. Inside you can see the SAP SID folder. Okay, let's go to the SAP system itself and see how the folders look like. Let's go to our SAP system. This is our SAP system. Let's open the Windows Explorer. Go to my computer and I will go to the C drive where you can see the folder USR. You can see inside USR you have a folder SAP. This folder is already shared. If I go to the properties and sharing, then you can see SAP log as well as you can also see the share SAP MNT. There will be two shares, SAP MNT and SAP log. So inside here you have SAP SID, then you have all the directories which we have seen. Okay, you have the central instance DV EPMG S0000 is the instance number. Then we have SES01, that is for the Java. Then we have sys. Inside sys you have gen, exe and global as well as the profile. Inside profile we have different kind of profile, default profiles, instance profile as well as a startup profile. You can see start. We will see that what is this profile means. Here you can see whenever you start an SAP system, when you trigger start SAP system, then the SAP system need to have some values to start the SAP system. That means how much memory it's going to occupy or how many work process it's going to have, how many dialog work process it's going to have. These kind of information needs to be maintained as well as a lot of security parameters. What kind of password need to be maintained. These kind of parameters are maintained in the profile parameters. The same thing what we have seen here in this specific directory, then you have these profiles. The first profile is the start profile. The start profile is applicable for all instances. So as soon as you execute the command, let's say start SAP system, the start profile, that value will be applied to all instances. It's a common values. It will be in the start profile. To start an SAP system, what all the information which is required will be, or whatever the configuration which is required will be defined in the start profile. So after that, then you have default profile. Default profile is also applicable for all instances. Let's say you have some specific values, let's say your security parameters, like what is the password length, which could be one profile parameter which is defined across all the system. So that could be defined in your default profile, then it will be available for all the system. Then you'll have instance profile that is specific to one instance. For example, how many dialog work process you want to have it in this specific instance. Depending on the memory capacity as well as the CPU capacity, you can have, for example, how many work process you wanted to have for specific instance. This can be defined in this instance profile. For example, this specific instance have less memory, or it can also have more memory, or the CPU capacity also can vary from one instance to another instance. So depending on the instance, you can define how many work process you want in the specific instance. It could be 10 work process. In some cases, you have 25 work process or 25 dialog work process and 10 background work process because the system is quite big. So depending on the size of the specific instance, then you can define how many work process you want. So that could be one instance profile parameter. Like this, these profile parameters can be defined. So depending on the configuration of the specific profiles, the SAP system will read these profile parameters and it will configure or it will start the system depending on the profile parameter. So it's initially defined during the startup of the system. We will come to this detail how the profile parameters can be maintained in very detail. This is just to give you an overview how the profile parameters are going to work. Now let us see the tools which we can use to start up or to manage the SAP system. This we have seen it before, the SAP MMC control. This SAP MMC control is available in Windows operating system. So this snapping console is generally like another Microsoft management console. SAP provide MMC control for Windows systems. This allows you to stop and start the instances. You can also do some kind of administration, let's say display some information to check the status of your database. So here what we have seen is that you can see the SID, that is the system ID. In our case it was an ECC system. We were able to see the system ID ECC here. Then you could see the database, that is ECC demo, that is a database. Then you can see the ABAP and the Java instance that is in the process list. We were able to see that ABAP as well as the Java instances. That is, here you could see the ABAP work process, and you can also see the Java work process here. So like this, we were able to use the MMC console where you can display the status of your system. Moreover, you can see here the main difference using MMC console is that you could see the status of the system by means of services, kind of a process list, or you can get the status very well. To start and stop an SAP system, you generally use SID ADM, the user which we have used it before to log into a SAP system. It is better you log in with this user and manage this one. You could also start the SAP system with other user which has similar privileges. However, when you start an SAP system, it will ask you for the user ID and password. That user ID and password will be that SID ADM, and the password for this user, that is ECC ADM, and the specific password for this user in our system. This is one tool which we can use. Second one is using browser. Using the browser also you can call the MMC control. That is http:// then the host name :5, then the instance number is 13. The instance number in our case is 00. If let's say we configured HTTPS in the SAP server services, then we could also use HTTPS. For that, there is a specific note which is published by SAP how to configure HTTPS for SAP services. That note number is 1036107. This explains how to configure HTTPS in this case. In that case, the port number will be 5, instance number 14. In our case, we did not use HTTPS in it because the first system and we are not using it for real business. Then we could also use this HTTP connection to check this. Here what it will do is it will use some of the Java applets in the browser to start the MMC console. We could start the MMC console in the browser and see and to understand how this browser looks like. It's actually more user-friendly than the Windows MMC console. However, the display and look almost feels more or less same. Here we could see that I already prepared the host address, that is http:// this is the host name ECC demo, then :500, that is the instance number which you are using, and 13 for HTTP. So let me copy this link and go to Internet Explorer, paste this link. Now we could see that Java is starting. It started the MMC console applet. Okay, now it's started. You can see that NetWeaver SAP Management Console. The first step, it says the monitor the SAP instance and please use a new button to control N. Then provide information about the system ID and the system number and the host name. That is that if you want to add the new system into the specific MMC console, then you can follow these instructions. Okay. Now if you see in the left side, you could see the SAP systems. And the right side, it should display all the relevant information. Okay, the SAP system which we can see it here is ECC. If I simply open this, here you can see first database, then you can see the central instance. As we said, central instance will be represented with the DVEVMGS, then the instance number that is running on the host name ECC demo. Then you can see the central service instance, that is SCS01, which is also running in the host name ECC demo. In general, this is a Java as well as ABAP system. That's the reason central instance is running in this specific system. This color here represents quite some interesting things. Let's say right now this color is green. This is also similar to the MMC console which we have seen in our Windows. If it is green, that means the system is running. If it is red, that means it has some errors. If it is gray, that means it stopped. If it is yellow, then it is not fully functional. There could be some issues. So that is the color it represents. At the moment you can see this is running. That's the reason we could also log into our SAP system if it is required in this case. So from here you could start and stop the SAP system. If you right click here, you can see stop the SAP system. You could also restart the SAP system. Okay. Here you can see the status which says is running. That means at the moment this system database is basically have ABAP as well as Java stack in this one, which is running at the moment. You could also see the status. Sometime it says started, which is also similar to running. That means it just started. This represents at the moment this system is running without any problem. You could sometimes see the status also processing. That means the system is at the moment in starting phase. You will also see sometime start timeout when you are starting an SAP system. Let's say there is some default values which we can set. By default it is 300 seconds. Let's say if the SAP is not responding to the MMC console for 300 seconds, then it will say start timeout. This could be for different reasons. Let's say there could be an issue with the SAP system in general, which needs to be fixed, which also will end up with a start timeout error. However, let's say if it is starting a little slow and the system which is running MMC console is not able to connect to the SAP system, also could be a problem. In that case also you will get a timeout error. So now let's see how to stop an SAP system. We can simply click here and say stop an SAP system. Here it will ask you hard stop or a soft stop. Let's say hard stop means immediately it will be stopped. Here also you could see that we gave a timeout period for 300 seconds. This is basically default. You simply say OK. Now you can see it is asking for the user ID. User ID here is SID ADM, that is CCADM. Now you can see this specific central instance went to yellow. That means it has some problem. If you go to process list, you can see the gateway is stopped. Then the dispatcher is right now going down. So you can see the ECC also yellow. At the moment, if there is any user, then they should get some error message saying the system is not available, and they will get basically a SAP GUI timeout error, and the system goes down. In general, when you are stopping any SAP system, of course, we need to check quite a lot of things. We cannot simply stop an SAP system like this. We will also see what are the procedures we could do as a basis consultant before you stop an SAP system in the end of this particular sessions. However, that procedures also we will see it in detail. To understand more in detail what we do in each procedures, or just as a understand in the beginning that you will see that procedure what we can do as an SAP basis consultant before stopping an SAP system. This will take some time because it has, as we said, stopping an SAP system, first it has to stop the dialog instance, central instance, then it goes one by one. You can also see, now you can see that the status of all the work processes where it's all not available. You can see the start is no. Going down, the status is down now. So let's wait for some more time because this does take time because it has to release all the work processors and memory. It has quite some task which is involved in this one. Okay, now it's all gone. You can see here the ECC is right now it's getting. Right now the system is down. Now if I go to work process, then you don't see any work process in other work process. It's all stopped. You don't have anything available at the moment. This is how you can stop an SAP system. So if I go to the SAP system now to log in, you will not be able to log into the system. You could see now we cannot log into this SAP system. Okay, let's go back to the MMC console and start the SAP system. So it's all instances. We can also specifically start the instance. Okay, now it is starting the SAP.